I'm Cormag, and this Wyvern is Generog. Nice to meet you.
Our newest Grand Hero battle unit is Cormag, a Wyvern Rider from the Sacred Stones. Before we get started, I want to say that I love his voice and artwork. Pretty similar art to his in-game portrait. Cormag is a kinda intimidating looking dude. I love the accent they gave him too, because while it's not something I was expecting, I still really like it. Aesthetics are on point, and I think it's a good thing they are, because Cormag is a flying lance unit, our third free one for the year in fact. To be fair, we only had one free lance flyer for like 2 years, but that was made up by the many 3 to 4 star lance flyers players can obtain by summoning. Today we'll see what Cormag brings to the very crowded table and if he is worth 5 starring. His stats are 42 HP, 36 attack, 32 speed, 34 defense, and 23 resistance. 36 attack is actually the highest base value for all lance flyers, which sounds promising, but with boons in play, others can surpass him. His 32 speed is decent, not too slow, not blazing fast. I would say it's enough to work with whether you want to go offensive or defensive, and this means Cormag's gonna have a lot of build options. This is further backed up by his 42 HP, which ties for highest in the group, base values only, and 34 defense is only one behind Tsubaki. 23 resistance isn't high, but all things considered, that's about as much as you can ask for if your other stats are already in a good spot. Wyvern Riders are generally the higher attack and defense flyers compared to Pegasus Knights, who have better speed and resistance. Thanks to good old power creep, Cormag actually has some nice stats compared to other lance flyers. He isn't really super behind in anything, and his 36 attack is solid, which means you don't have to worry about damage too much. He is a more defense oriented flyer, which is not the strong suit of most lance flyers, so if you like high defense units, then Cormag could have a spot on your team. Later on, we'll have a lot of build options to talk about because really this guy can easily fit a multitude of roles on a team, and that's a nice selling point. Unfortunately, Cormag's nice stats don't get him a unique weapon. He has the simple but effective Slaying Lance Plus. Accelerated special trigger, so all specials have one less cooldown permanently. Really not much to say here. Slaying weapons can work on pretty much any unit because cooldown reduction is very powerful and valuable to have. Faster specials means more damage potential, and many times a special proc wins you a fight. Cormag is totally fine with this weapon. It can be stat refined, which is a good thing, and getting 5 extra HP is nice, along with the ability to spec into more attack, speed, defense, or res. It's boring, but I can't really complain about its effectiveness. The rest of Cormag's base kit is not super crazy either. His special is Ignis, 80% of his 34 defense is great, and it will be on a 3-turn cooldown with Slaying Lance. His B skill is Dull Close, which nullifies all enemy field buffs when Cormag fights a melee foe. There's nothing wrong with the Dull Close or Dull Range skills, but they are potentially useless should the enemy not have any buffs. Now, this is a huge win for the 7 Luke fans out there because Luke's Rowdy Sword Refine basically wants Dull Close for his build, and this is an easy way to get it. A little more relevant is female Kana's Refine, which would also like this skill. Kana would prefer a low defense and res skill if it ever happens, but Dull Close gets the same job done against other melee units, and I would say it's an okay skill option for that. Moving on, for Cormag's C skill, he comes with Defense Opening. This buffing skill grants the ally with the highest defense stat with +6 defense for the turn. This skill cannot self-buff Cormag, so it's purely for team support purposes. While not a must-have buff, opening skills are nice because they work from anywhere on the map and they buff your unit's strongest stats, which generally is what they want. For example, if I have a high defense tank, I probably want to give them even more defense to tank even better. Since the C slot is our flexible slot most of the time, Defense Opening is great since you can keep it on Cormag for any build without feeling too bad about it. So far, Cormag isn't giving us a lot of unique talking points. His stats are probably his strongest asset because his base kit is rather tame. Nothing wrong with the Slaying Lance or Ignis, but it's nothing new. Dull Close is a little dull itself because there are just other ways to neutralize buffs and stronger B skills to select. Defense Opening is good, but again, it's a support skill, and it's not like Cormag brings any other unique support abilities. If you like Cormag and just want to give him a little extra investment, then here is his +1 merge stats. Normally he's going to get +1 HP and +1 defense. The Neutral Nature bonus adds +1 HP, attack, and defense, so not bad for Cormag. He puts more points into his best stats. 37 attack and 36 defense on a flyer is very nice, and of course more HP is always good for a bulkier unit. Now we find ourselves in a rather odd situation. Not even 6 months ago, we only had one freelance flyer, and that was Valter. In that short period since then, we now have 4 total, and we can do some comparisons among each of them to determine who does what better. The group can be split into 2 sides, the slower high defense side and the faster higher res side. Literally Wyvern Riders versus Pegasus Knights. Cormag is very similar to Volter and is in fact better than him just based off of stats. Same HP and defense, but Cormag wins out in attack, speed, and resistance. The big discrepancy here is that Volter comes with the Cursed Lance, and he's been around for a very long time now, so it's entirely possible for him to get a Cursed Lance refined not too far in the future. As a refresher, Cursed Lance is a sort of Fury-esque type weapon. It has a slaying effect, but also grants +2 attack and speed at the cost of Volter losing 4 HP after every fight. While killing yourself after every battle may not be preferable, we have a lot of ways to take advantage of low HP in this game, so Volter can run some weird builds and fun things like Fury 3, Desperation, Brazens, or even just purposefully lowering his HP enough so that Wings of Mercy allies can swoop in. Cormag will be the better tank because he has higher stats, and Volter's Cursed Lance isn't a great tanking weapon compared to things like Berkut's Lance or the Vanguard Lance. For offensive builds, it will depend on what refine the Cursed Lance gets eventually, if it ever gets one. If Volter gets something cool, then the stat loss could be forgiven, but we just have to wait and see. While Cormag's direct comparison is with Volter, Sigrun and Cynthia are on the other end of the spectrum. Both are faster than Cormag with less attack, and their base res stats are higher in exchange for defense. If you prefer speed, then these two are better options, and if you want to fight dragons, then they should do better. Still, Cormag isn't too far behind in terms of speed or res, and he does have more HP to work with. If you just want to focus on attack or defense, then Cormag is your best option out of the free reward Lance Flyers. Not listed here are the tons and tons of other Lance Flyers. If you want more comparisons, then I'll link both my review of Sigrun and Cynthia in the description, because in both of those videos I already talk about summonable 3 to 4 star Lance Flyers and what some of them can do with their new refines. Tsubaki does deserve a mention as well thanks to his new weapon. He has more defense than Cormag and is faster, but his attack stat is pitiful. His new Golden Naginata actually tries to solve this issue and gives him more damage when healthy, so Tsubaki actually shouldn't be too looked down upon from now on. If you value quick repose fodder too much, then Cormag is a fine stand-in for a high defense Lance Flyer. Onto builds and playstyles, we have a lot to talk about. While our Lance Flyers this year haven't had much luck getting unique weapons, there are actually a lot of available inheritable lances, and we'll discuss most of them today. First, we'll see what we can do with Cormag's base kit. If you don't care for investing in speed, then Cormag's go-to skill should be Quick Riposte. That implies an enemy phase playstyle, and it's simple and easy to build for with some easier to get skill options. Refine the Slaying Lance for that sweet +5 HP and +4 defense. Get some defense increasing A skills like Steady Stance 3, Attack and Defense Bond, or even Brazen Tag and Defense, although that last one doesn't work with Quick Riposte as well. Though close is okay to keep if you can slot Quick Riposte in the seal slot, but if you get rid of it, then the Sacred Seal slot can be used for something better like Close Defense or Defense and Res Bond, or even Attack and Defense Bond. For specials, Ignis on a 3 cooldown won't proc in 1 round unless Cormag is doubled first, so if you want consistent damage on that first encounter, you can also go with Bonfire or Luna. There are a lot of easy to put together setups if you just want to stack attack and defense. Next up, I want to talk about defensive builds with heavier investment. While the Slaying Lance is versatile, there are awesome defensive options for lances. The Vanguard Plus is a lance from Thea, a 4 to 5 star lancer that grants +7 defense when defending. Refine that sucker for another 4 defense, and that's an additional 11 defense for Cormag. While you can use this weapon with budget A skills, the more premium A skills like Steady Stance 4 will be your best options. Getting built-in guard is super valuable, and +8 defense with that +7 defense from the Vanguard Lance already sets you up with a crazy high defense tank. If you want, Cormag can also use Berkut's Lance or steal Conrad's Barrier Lance for +7 resistance instead. Nothing wrong with some extra res since dragons are very present in any mode, and Cormag's base 23 res isn't unsalvageable. Other res increasing skills include Close Defense in the A slot, Fortress Defense in res 3, or even Warding Stance 4 if you really want. Bonds are also very good, and many are available in the seal slot too. If you want to flex Quick Riposte into the Sacred Seal slot, then B skills like Chill Attack or even something like Attack and Defense Link might be what you're looking for. I didn't have the room here, but if you do want to invest in some speed, then there are skills like Steady Posture, +4 to defense and speed when defending, and that one is also on Thea. Darting Stance or Swift Stance or Sacred Seals you can utilize too, and there is Speed and Res Bond for the more res focused builds. Speaking of speed, how about some offensive builds? 32 speed isn't special, but if you really want to improve it, that's a viable option. Since Cormag has some nice base attack, he really wants extra speed where he can get it, and that means a speed refined for the Sling Lance is a great choice. To pair with it, you can also use the classic Fury plus Desperation plus Brazen Tag and Speed build, and I do want to highlight it here because I think it shows how good it is for even units with mediocre speed. For example, with the build on the left, once Cormag dips into Desperation range, he ends up with 60 attack and 45 speed. We are not reinventing the wheel here, but there's nothing wrong with using a tried and true build. Other offensive weapons include the Harmonic Lance Plus from Shigure or the Fire Sweep Lance Plus from good old Roderick. I made a whole video about Fire Sweep Flyers, and while Cormag won't be our best option, he can make it work with something like Darting Blow or Attack and Speed solo. Maybe you bring an ally with speed debuffs like Sabotage Speed. You could even just do good old Death Blow plus Drag Back just to get big single hit damage while bringing the enemy close to your team. If you want a fancy B skill or Sacred Seal, Flyers can use Aerobatics or Flyer Formation. Those could work with bond skills, and we have Sacred Seals like Darting Blow or Sturdy Blow for guaranteed player phase power. Not listed here is the Heavy Blade Seal, and that's great if you can get Cormag some extra attack buffs from his allies. Last, we have even more lances you can choose from, and I've listed separate example builds for each of them. The Reprisal Lance can be gotten from Sigrun or a 5-star Sumiya. This lance grants plus 6 attack when defending, so if you just want to stack attack on the enemy phase, then this is the weapon. You can combine it with things like Fierce Stance, Attack and Defense solo, or whatever attack increasing A skill you can get. Makes sense to use Vantage for this sort of shenanigans, and that will be best paired with Defense Smoke or Savage Blow as your C skill. Not exactly a common setup, but I've been bested by weirder things before. For something more normal, the Slaying Spear is effective against armored units, and since it scales best with high attack units, Cormag is a good user of the weapon. Sturdy Impact is super nice to have because in the case you don't KO an enemy, he can prevent a follow-up attack, which could also prevent a special proc. Chill Defense and Sturdy Blow are for maximizing damage output, and Attack Smoke is great on any brawler who may need to take some enemy phase hits. Last, we have the good old Brave Lance, and you just want to stack as much attack as possible. Very simple. Death Blow 3 is easy to get these days, and Chill Defense is a seal now if you do want to bring it to a fight. Hit and Run is a nice option to retreat after Cormag makes his attacks, and I do like that skill on Flyers. The takeaway from all of this is that Cormag has a lot of different build options at his disposal, and it's up to you on what you want from him. The downside is that Cormag probably isn't going to be the top tier user of any said build, except for ones that are purely focused on attack and defense. He definitely won't trump Flyers like Cordelia or Shigure if you want a fast offensive Lancer. Even for defensive setups, he can be challenged by Thea, Tsubaki, or Florina, who has an armor effective lance that gets plus 4 to all stats when defending. His res is okay, but a ton of Pegasus Knights have res stats in the 30s like Sigrun. Do not even get me started on Est or Catria. Their White Wing weapons are absurd, potentially combining a Slaying Spear with a Brave Lance or a Slaying Lance with a Brave Lance. The thing about being a freelance flyer is that their summonable 3 to 4 star competition is very strong, and longtime players have accumulated a lot of those older units at this point. So should you promote Cormag to 5 stars? Well, he has good attack and defense with okay speed for a Lance Flyer. Cormag follows Volter with a more defense oriented stat line rather than res focused, and his 36 base attack means you don't have to worry about damage as much. It's a nice change of pace compared to the countless number of Pegasus Knights in this group. As for Cormag's base kit, it's okay for generalist purposes. Slaying Lance can be kept for offensive or defensive builds, which is great, though close has its uses, but there's just so many other good B skills to choose from. Defense opening is nice since you can keep it for any team Cormag slots in on. It just buffs an ally, so it's fine if you don't want to replace it. In conclusion, stat-wise, Cormag is a better Volter. If you want to focus on attack and defense more, then Cormag is your guy. Volter isn't that far behind since he has a unique weapon, so that's extra might, not to mention his weapon grants plus 2 attack and speed. If you plan to go with a defensive build, then I would go with Cormag over Volter, but if you want an offensive setup, then I might wait before going all in. Cursed Lance could get an awesome refine, we just don't know when or what it will be, and it could change things if it's something drastic. Of course, if pure gameplay isn't your only focus, then who cares what Volter gets? Cormag is awesome in his own right, and my favorite aspect of Fire Emblem is using who you like because you want to. Even though Cormag faces stiff competition in this class type, he can easily hold his own and do just fine. If you're looking for something different and unique, then we have an assortment of 3 to 4 star lance flyers with unique weapons and refines. Cormag can't offer anything super special, but I do think he holds a nice spot for builds that use the Vanguard Lance or just pure attack and defense focused builds. It's not like other class types can't offer similar units, but if you want a flying, high defense Lance unit, then Cormag fills that niche. Unlike his flying axe Wyvern comrades, Cormag also has a usable speed stat, and he is more balanced than mid-maxed. That is not going to be to everyone's liking, but it is what it is. I'm pretty okay with what they did with Cormag. It gives us another option for higher defense flyers, and unlike Tsubaki, Cormag can still deal some damage even when he gets on lower HP. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with him just yet, but I'll probably build him up regardless. I do have some extra Theas lying around, and a blue Baruka sounds pretty fun, so maybe we'll go with that. If you got any builds or thoughts on Cormag, then please leave a comment. That's all I got for now, but to end this video, I'll let Cormag play us out. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Want to get away?
Your death will be agonizing.